All right, boys and girls, welcome back to Teaching History Before It Happens. I am your author and host, Luke Humphreys. Let's get it on. All right, in this installment, we're going to be talking about the fact that there is no dadgum 7-year tribulation. Yeah, I know. You think that there's a 7-year tribulation and the Antichrist is going to make a new peace treaty with Israel and 10 nations maybe, and then he's going to say, oh, tricked you, and then just say to heck with the whole thing after 3.5 years, and he's going to break his covenant. Yeah, none of that is right. Okay, none of that is correct. We're told on 10 different occasions in the Bible that the end times will last only 3.5 years. Starting back in Daniel 7:25, it says a time, times, and half a time. Daniel 12:7 says a time, times, and half a time. Daniel 12:11 says 1,290 days, and that is encompassing an extra 30 days for the apostasy to occur. After the Pope endorses the Antichrist on March 27th to 28th of next year, 2027, that 30-day period is for the apostasy to happen. Many so-called Christians are going to fully endorse Islam and the Antichrist and follow the Pope, because the Pope's going to have really cool magic tricks. He's going to be able to call fire down from heaven and do all this other stuff. He might walk on water, who knows? All right, but when talking about Elijah in Luke 4:25, the Lord mentioned 3.5 years. Revelation 11 says, well, it's 42 months, 1,260 days, 3.5 days. All right, Revelation 12 says 1,260 days, time times and half a time. And then Revelation 13 says 42 months. All right, so in his famous 1712 Bible commentary, Mr. Matthew Henry applied Daniel 9:27 to Jesus Christ, not to an Antichrist. He said, by offering himself as a sacrifice once for all, he, Jesus, put an end to all the Levitical sacrifices. Adam Clarke, in his well-known 1825 Bible commentary, stated that Daniel 9:27's term of 7 years is a reference that Jesus himself would confirm or ratify the new covenant with mankind. So in 1827, John Nelson Darby promoted the 7-year tribulation and the pre-trib rapture made up by the Jesuit Francisco Ribera. All right. That was a dark day in church history right there. A couple of guys screwing up and misleading millions. Many have misinterpreted Daniel 9:27a as referring to the Antichrist establishing, making, creating, forming a 7-year peace agreement with Israel and then breaking the agreement in the middle of it. The Hebrew word gabar means to prevail or strengthen or confirm something that already exists, like the Abrahamic covenant. It does not mean that anyone makes a covenant. Jesus confirmed the Abrahamic covenant for 7 years with many, meaning with all who would believe, particularly the lost sheep of the house of Israel, dispersed throughout the Gentile nations, because that's who Jesus said that the Father sent him to initially. And why is that? Well, that's because the Jews were under punishment until Passover 2030. So the sheep of the lost house of Israel dispersed among the Gentiles are the ones who are going to come to Christ. And by and large, we Gentiles are the ones, Hagoyim, we are the ones who have come to Christ for the last 2 millennia. Jesus is described as Messiah the Prince in Daniel 9:25 and is referenced in verse 26, speaking of the people of the prince to come. The people of the prince were the Jews. And of course, this confuses people because to come is in future tense, while Jesus' arrival is certainly in the past. However, when Daniel wrote it, Jesus' arrival was still centuries in the future. Jesus was and is Messiah the Prince, who established a new covenant in his blood and strengthened the Abrahamic covenant during the 7 years of his ministry. Obviously, the effect of his ministry is eternal, but the actual performing of his ministry is only for a 7-year period, which is why Paul said to the Galatians, and if you belong to Christ, then you are Abraham's descendants, heirs according to promise. When Jesus spoke in Matthew 26:28, this is my blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many for the forgiveness of sins, he likely knew that he was closely quoting Daniel 9:27, that he shall confirm the covenant with many. He used the same words, after all. During Jesus' first coming, he completed the first half of his 7-year ministry, and he was cut off in the middle of the 7, putting an end to the Jewish system of animal sacrifice for the temporary, yes, temporary covering of sins. Yom Kippur never washed away anyone's sins. They just temporarily covered them. So the confusion stems from the fact that they conflate the 30 CE putting an end to sacrifices through Jesus' blood with the 2027 CE putting an end to sacrifices by the Antichrist in the rebuilt temple or tabernacle. Hebrews 10:12. But he, having offered one sacrifice for sins for all time, verse 18, now where there is forgiveness of these things, an offering for sin is no longer required. In fact, it's probably offensive to God to keep offering sacrifices when the one sacrifice has already been made. So this leaves 3.5 years of his ministry yet to be completed. These are the 3.5 years, the 42 months, the 1,260 days spoken of 10 times. But first, humanity is given 30 days to fall away from the faith and join the Antichrist starting next March 2027. All right, so March 2027 until this October 7th, this is the day that the millennial kingdom begins. 1,290 days prior to that is when the Antichrist is revealed, March 27th, maybe the 28th, because of the Hebrew calendar starting at dusk rather than dawn or midnight. All right, so after the apostasy, 30 days later, there are 1,260 days, and this is when the latter rains is poured out on us, and we receive power to convince. Next time, we're going to get into some deep meat right here. What about daggum Islam? It's 25% of all humanity are Muslims. How could Jesus not deal with these people? Obviously, this false religion has to be dealt with, and it will be. All right, love you guys. Spread this far and wide as you please.